Welcome to the official Sales and Marketing for Beauty Conference podcast. This is your go to destination for real world insights on building, growing, and thriving in the beauty industry. Whether you're a beauty entrepreneur, a salon or spa owner, a product brand owner, or an aspiring professional, you're in the right place. Each episode is your personal masterclass in beauty entrepreneurship, from sales strategy and social media tips to brand building and behind the scenes stories from industry leaders. SAMB is more than a podcast or an event. We're a year round support system. Mark your calendar for SAMB 2025, our flagship conference happening November 5th through the 7th. It's a virtual event. And so we have a lot of global speakers as well as speakers there in the US and local to New York City. We'll also have some local networking opportunities and there'll be virtual networking opportunities. And so there'll be hands on workshops, one to one consultations, expert led sessions, all designed to help you scale and succeed and get real actionable strategies and tips to grow the sales and marketing function of your business, right? So stay tuned for the podcast. Make sure you check out our website, and we hope to see you at SAMB 2025.
A physical product might sit there on a shelf looking great in its package maybe, but the brand, for today's consumer, that brand truly lives online, especially for beauty. Social media isn't just like a side thing anymore. It's really become the absolute center of gravity. It's where commerce happens, where conversations start, where community gets built. So today we're doing a deep dive into a very specific playbook focused entirely on social media strategy just for beauty brands. We're going to look at the pre-platforms, break down the emerging trends we see coming for 2025, and crucially, flag those mistakes that are genuinely holding back growth for some otherwise amazing products. And our mission here is really dedicated to you, the learner. We want you to quickly but really thoroughly get your head around how beauty brands can actually cut through all that noise online. Because it is noisy and it's always changing. The goal, turn that content into a real community and yes, into conversions. We're hunting for those shortcuts to success in what is, let's face it, a pretty volatile market because the core insight really that came through in all the research.
Success isn't about trying to be everywhere. It's about being intentional, really focused.
That word, intentionality, that's absolutely the foundation. It has to be. What our research really hammered home is, yes, the potential for growth in beauty online is massive. It's huge. But resources are almost always limited.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an emerging brand. So you absolutely have to be laser focused. Efficiency, effectiveness, that's the name of the game. I think the key thing we need to get across right from the start is that need for strategic focus and avoiding that trap, information overload, where you just get paralyzed or spread yourself way too thin trying to do everything. And the stakes, honestly, they couldn't be higher right now. We're way past the point where magazines or walking into a department store is how people discover new beauty products. Social media is the #1 space for customer discovery, full stop. It's where people connect with the story, with the founder behind the brand, the human element, and it massively influences that final purchase decision. Often, it happens in seconds right there on the platform. So if a beauty brand doesn't nail this digital space with real precision, well, they're just not going to keep up. The competition is relentless.
Okay, let's unpack that. Trying to be everywhere. That feels like the classic mistake, right? The one that just guarantees you burn through resources way too fast. The sources we looked at were super clear. Different platforms do totally different jobs. So how do the really successful beauty brands handle this? How do they differentiate their strategies? Which platform is for what specific purpose in this beauty ecosystem? We probably have to start with Instagram. I mean, despite everything else popping up, it still feels like the visual HQ for most beauty brands, doesn't it? It's where that aspirational look lives, where you build the mood board, the core visual identity. And the research confirmed, Instagram Reels are still huge for discovery. They're like the dynamic window shopping for beauty online. Great for those quick before and afters or showing off a product texture.
Exactly. Reels are for grabbing that initial attention for discovery. But the crucial thing to understand is the difference in purpose within Instagram. So Reels are for the quick glance. But stories and carousels, that's where the functional work gets done. Stories are perfect for that timely stuff, the in-the-moment content. Q&As, polls, direct engagement creates that sense of urgency, Carousels, though, they are absolutely vital for education. Breaking down, say, a 5-step skincare routine or detailing the key ingredients in a new serum launch. So Instagram is polished, it's aspirational, but it uses these different formats to build that critical trust alongside the glamour. It's not just pretty pictures. Now, if Instagram is kind of setting the visual stage, then TikTok. Well, TikTok is the engine of virality. And right now, nothing else really compares for driving that fast, explosive audience growth. But the distinction here is absolutely vital. TikTok rewards content that feels raw, that's authentic, that jumps on trends. It often prioritizes the concept, the idea, over some big production budget.
Okay, but hold on. How raw is too raw? If a brand is working hard to build that high quality, maybe premium image on Instagram, where's the line on TikTok? Doesn't raw risk looking?
Yeah.
Well, unprofessional.
That's a fantastic question. And honestly, getting that balance right is what separates the winners from the brands that just look lost on TikTok. The sources suggest aiming for something like low fidelity production, high quality concept. The content should feel like a tip from a friend, not a slick commercial. So ditch the studio lights, maybe use your smartphone, embrace natural lighting. It's okay if there's a little mistake or a stumble. It feels human. If you take that super polished, perfect video from Instagram and just dump it onto TikTok, the algorithm often tanks it. And the audience, they just swipe past because it doesn't feel relatable. They want the genuine thing, not an ad. On TikTok, a founder just, applying lipstick, maybe a bit messily, can go viral purely because it feels real. That's the power there.
Okay, that makes sense for the quick hits. But TikTok is great for those bursts, but virality can be fickle, right? It doesn't always last. So where do brands build that deeper, more sustained loyalty, the long game?
Yeah, and that's where YouTube really comes into its own. It often serves as the platform for building long-form loyalty. Commitment, really. While TikTok gives you that rapid discovery, YouTube is where you convert that initial curiosity into deeper knowledge and trust. It's absolutely ideal for those in-depth educational pieces. Think comprehensive 20-minute tutorials, detailed product comparisons, maybe showing results over several weeks. This is the kind of content you need for higher-priced products. Or things that have a learning curve, like complex skincare systems, or maybe specialized makeup techniques. This deeper content builds incredibly strong community loyalty. And it shows the brand is genuinely committed to educating its customers, not just selling to them. If you're launching, say, a very technical new serum, that 10-minute video explaining the science, the clinical results, how to use it properly, what results to expect over 4 or 6 weeks, that belongs on YouTube. No other platform really offers that kind of depth effectively.
Okay, what about the platforms that are maybe a bit quieter? Not so much about the daily social buzz, but more about driving steady, sustained traffic. The sources pointed to Pinterest as this, underutilized powerhouse, which surprised me a bit. I think a lot of people still just see it as a digital scrapbook.
Oh, that's a huge underestimation of its strategic power, especially for beauty. You absolutely need to stop thinking of Pinterest as just another social network. Treat it like a visual search engine, like Google Images, but hyper-focused on inspiration and how-to guides. It's perfectly positioned for evergreen beauty content. Things like how-to guides for makeup looks, mood boards for seasonal trends, infographics about ingredients, and the crucial benefit, the one people often miss, longevity. An Instagram reel might have a lifespan of a few days, maybe a week if it really pops. But a well-optimized pin with strong keywords and great visuals can drive consistent, high-intent traffic to your website for months, sometimes even a year or more. It catches people right when they're in that planning phase, actively searching for solutions like how to do a perfect cat eye or best natural ingredients for sensitive skin. That's incredibly valuable traffic.
Okay, that covers the main consumer-facing ones, but there's one other specific niche we need to touch on, LinkedIn. It seems counterintuitive, maybe. Why would a direct-to-consumer beauty brand spend resources on a platform that's all about B2B networking?
Yeah, it seems odd at first glance, but LinkedIn is critical because its function isn't about selling lipstick directly to consumers. Its power lies in brand validation and strategic positioning. It's invaluable for B2B. Think about securing partnerships, maybe finding better suppliers, or talking to potential retail distributors, and fundamentally it's about demonstrating industry leadership. So, for example, if your brand is really focused on sustainable packaging innovation, LinkedIn is where your founder might post articles or commentary about supply chain challenges and solutions. You position yourself as a thought leader in that space. This is vital if you're trying to impress industry insiders, wholesalers, or, very importantly, potential investors like VCs. They're definitely checking LinkedIn at the management team, the brand's philosophy, its standing in the industry. It's about external validation and long-term business growth, not immediate sales clicks. So when you lay them all out, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, LinkedIn, you see each one demands a really distinct content approach, different resources, and that complexity really underscores one absolute operational necessity. You have to be doing regular and, frankly, pretty ruthless audits of your platform performance.
Okay, so what does an audit like that actually look like in practice? What are the key things you're measuring to figure out where to put your energy?
You can't just, post stuff and cross your fingers. The audit has to compare two core things. The investment you're making on a platform that's time, money, creative energy spent on, say, platform A versus the conversion signal you're getting back from platform A. And by conversion signal, I mean actual sales, qualified leads, maybe high-value email signups directly attributed to that platform's activity. So if your team is spending like 40% of their creative time making amazing content for platform X, but platform S is only generating 5% of your actual sales or high-intent leads, well, you've got a problem. You need to pivot. Fast. You need to take that 40% time investment and reallocate it. Put it towards the platform that is delivering those valuable results, even if that means posting less overall, but posting much more strategically where it counts.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating for me. Once we've figured out where to post strategically, we need to dig into what people actually want to see in 2025. The sources we looked at really emphasize this growing, almost unwavering demand from consumers. They want authenticity, they want radical transparency, and they want genuine human connection. It feels like a definite backlash against that super filtered, perfect aesthetic that dominated for so long. Let's break down these key shifts that are really going to define the next year or so.
Absolutely. And the number one shift, the one that's really being driven by consumers who are just getting smarter and, frankly, more skeptical, is this move towards ingredient transparency. And this isn't just about, listing the ingredients in tiny print on the back of the box. No, it's about making those ingredients the actual star of your content. It's become a top priority for consumers now. They're actively reading labels. They want to know exactly what they're putting on their skin and, crucially, why it's supposed to work. But the execution of this trend is where brands can win or lose. You can't just throw up a link to a dense scientific study. The transparency has to be simple. It has to be digestible, visually engaging. The most effective formats we're seeing are things like short, really dynamic videos. Maybe they spotlight one key ingredient using simple visuals like a clean graphic of the molecule or a quick shot of where it's sourced sustainably. Explain what it is, where it comes from, and why it matters for their skin, all in, say, under 60 seconds. This kind of proactive education builds enormous trust, especially in a market where consumers are really wary of clean washing or just feeling confused by complex labels.
Okay, that covers the sort of intellectual, the knowledge side of things. But there's this other trend emerging that feels completely different, almost. Primal, sensory maybe, beauty ASMR. It sounds a bit strange on the surface, maybe even gimmicky. But the view counts on this stuff are undeniable. What's the psychology here? Why are people so drawn to these sounds and textures?
It is fascinating, isn't it? Beauty ASMR, for anyone unfamiliar, is basically using the sounds of product application or the visual textures to create this really intense sensory connection. Think about the crisp sound when you break the seal on a new jar, or that thick, satisfying plop when you scoop out a rich cream, the click of a magnetic lipstick case closing, or just watching the smooth gliding motion of a brush blending foundation. The psychology, it's actually pretty simple. It's deeply satisfying. It's immersive. It gives you this physical, almost therapeutic connection to the product experience, even though you're not physically touching it. Some people find it genuinely relaxing. It lowers anxiety. And it creates anticipation. The impact is huge because this kind of content bypasses your logical brain. It hooks you emotionally, sensorially. It creates this deep desire to feel that texture, to hear that satisfying click for yourself. It's basically product marketing driven by feeling, not just facts.
Wow, okay, that's a really powerful way to connect emotionally. And visually, the next big trend seems to shift the focus completely too. This demand for real skin, real people. This feels like that authenticity mandate really kicking into high gear. The industry seems to be moving sharply away from chasing that impossible airbrushed perfection.
Yes, definitely. And we need to be clear about what that actually looks like in practice, in the content itself. This shift is fueling a focus on using genuinely unretouched imagery. Consumers are just too savvy now. They can spot a smoothing filter a mile away, and they're increasingly rejecting those heavily altered images as misleading or just unrelatable.
One phrase that jumped out from the reading was texture-positive skincare videos. Can you unpack that? What does that mean practically for someone creating content?
Sure. Texture positive means actively showcasing the real, visible texture of human skin without filtering it into oblivion. It means showing pores, showing minor blemishes or scars, showing fine lines, showing how light naturally reflects off skin that isn't perfectly smooth. Instead of blurring skin to look like plastic or porcelain, which was the old standard, you embrace the reality of skin texture. It's partly about representation, making people feel seen, and partly about normalization. setting realistic expectations. And alongside that, ensuring truly diverse representation across all your content. That means age, gender expression, body type, skin conditions, ethnicities. That's not just a nice to have anymore. It's basically table stakes. It needs to be a genuine reflection of the diverse world we live in. This commitment to showing realness builds incredible trust. And that demand for realness flows directly into the next major shift: founder visibility. For years, big brands often felt like these faceless corporations hidden behind slick logos, kind of distant. But now, consumers are actively looking to connect with the actual human being behind the brand name.
Why do you think the founder matters so much more now? Is it just about having a personality, or is there something deeper going on?
I think it's much deeper. Consumers want to know the story. They want to know the why behind the brand. Why was this specific product created? What values does the founder hold? Think about it in a market that's incredibly saturated. If you have two serums with pretty similar ingredient lists, the consumer will often gravitate towards the brand whose founder they feel some kind of personal connection with. When the founder shows up, maybe shares their journey vulnerably, the challenges of sourcing ingredients ethically, the frustrations of getting a formula right, maybe even their own personal skin struggles that led them to create the product. It makes the brand feel more human, more reliable, more relatable. It provides that crucial connection. Suddenly, buying the product isn't just a transaction. It feels like you're investing in a person's mission, something you believe in too.
Right. And then finally, kind of bridging the gap between all this authentic, emotional content and the actual sale. We have this huge push towards social commerce integrations.
Yeah.
This feels like where the whole content to cash journey just becomes almost instantaneous. It collapses that old marketing funnel.
Yeah, this is maybe the biggest technological shift impacting things right now because it removes so much friction from the buying process. We're talking about specific platform features that make purchasing easier than ever before. Things like TikTok Shop, Instagram Checkout, YouTube shopping integrations. They mean the customer often never even has to leave the social media app to complete a purchase.
And the significance of that instant buy.
Oh, it's massive. It cannot be overstated. It directly transforms engaging content. Maybe that cool tutorial video you just watched into an immediate purchase. A customer sees it, they like it, they click the Shop Now button that's integrated right there in or below the video, and maybe 2 clicks later, the product is bought. That immediacy is a total game changer for conversion rates. Why? Because it stops the customer from losing that impulse, getting distracted, or abandoning their cart during some clunky redirect to a separate website checkout. It's fundamentally changing social media. It's no longer just a top-of-funnel tool for awareness. It's becoming a mid-funnel consideration and bottom funnel conversion machine all rolled into one seamless experience. Okay, so let's assume a brand has a fantastic product and they're totally clued into all those trends we discussed. They can still fail if their social media execution is sloppy, right? We absolutely need to look at the common pitfalls that the source materials highlighted. Because these mistakes aren't trivial, they actively stall growth, they can dilute the brand's image, and they waste precious time and money. The first big one is what we can call trend chasing versus brand alignment. The mistake is pretty simple. It's that temptation to jump on every single viral trend that pops up, a specific dance, a trending audio clip, some weird meme format, without stopping to ask, does this actually fit our brand? Does it align with our core identity, our voice, our values? So you're saying chasing those potentially huge view numbers isn't worth it if it ends up confusing your core customers about who you are?
Likely. It's short-term thinking. Imagine a very serious dermatologist-developed, science-first skincare brand. If they suddenly start doing some completely random, silly dance challenge set to a pop song just because it's trending, it instantly undermines all the authority and scientific credibility they've worked so hard to build elsewhere, like with their ingredient transparency content. You basically dilute your hard-won brand equity chasing cheap views that probably won't even convert. The goal should be that your audience instantly recognizes content as yours, regardless of the specific format you're using. It needs to feel authentic to the brand. Okay, and the second pitfall you mentioned goes right back to that critical difference we talked about between platforms like Instagram and TikTok. It's about over-polishing content. Well, Instagram might demand a certain level of aesthetic finish, taking those hyper-polished professional studio videos and posting them on platforms that thrive on relatability, like TikTok. That's a specific execution mistake that can actually hurt your performance there. Well, wait, isn't higher production value always kind of safer? If TikTok is meant to be raw, how raw is too raw? Where is that line where authentic starts looking unprofessional and might actually put customers off?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The line, I think, is defined more by technical clarity than by artistic polish. The content absolutely still needs to be clear, well lit enough to see. Audio needs to be understandable. But the vibe, the feel of it needs to be casual, maybe even a little imperfect. The line gets crossed when the content feels like a really expensive, glossy advertisement rather than, say, a genuine tip shared by a peer or a quick behind-the-scenes insight from the founder. When content looks too perfect on TikTok, it creates this kind of artificial barrier. It disconnects the audience. Honestly, it's often better to have a slightly shaky phone video that has a great relatable message than a perfectly smooth cinema quality production that just screams, I'm trying to sell you something expensive. Okay, the third pitfall. And this one feels maybe the most fundamental because it basically contradicts almost every positive trend we discussed. It's neglecting community. This is the direct opposite of building that human connection everyone craves. Think about it. If a customer takes the time out of their day to ask a genuine question about an ingredient in your comments, or maybe they share a really positive testimonial, or even if they leave constructive, critical feedback, ignoring that interaction, that's just a catastrophic failure in today's market.
That seems like basic common sense, really. So why does it happen so often? Why do brands drop the ball on this?
I think it's often because community engagement is time-consuming, it takes real effort, and brands sometimes get overly focused on just churning out the next piece of new content rather than managing the conversations happening around the content they've already posted. But social media has to be a two-way street. It's social. Ignoring comments, ignoring DMs, it sends a really clear message. The brand sees its audience as just numbers, as transactional wallets, not as a community of real people. And when customers feel treated transactionally, their loyalty is paper thin. They'll move on to the next brand without a second thought. Every single unanswered question is a missed opportunity, an opportunity to build trust, to maybe convert a skeptic, to turn a casual viewer into a passionate advocate for your brand. Response time and response quality have to be critical KPIs for any beauty brand serious about social.
Right, okay. Moving into maybe more operational mistakes now. Pitfall number 4 is about inconsistency and timing. This one feels like it could be a silent killer of growth because it hurts you on a couple of different fronts, doesn't it? First, it messes with audience expectations. Yeah, exactly. If your followers don't know when to expect content from you, like if you post 3 times a day for a week, and then vanish completely for 2 weeks, you break that rhythm, that expectation. Audiences, especially loyal ones, thrive on a certain level of reliability.
And second, and this is maybe even more critical from a purely technical standpoint, inconsistency severely hurts your performance with the algorithms on pretty much every major platform. We know these algorithms favor consistency. Why? Because consistent creators keep users engaged and on the platform longer. If your posting schedule is all over the place, sporadic, the platform basically interprets that as low activity, low commitment from you as a creator.
Yeah.
And the result? Your content just gets shown less often overall. If you think about the mechanics behind it, platforms reward creators who reliably feed the machine with fresh content. They use signals like recency, how new is the post, and frequency, how often does this creator post. If you establish a pattern, say posting reliably once a day, the algorithm learns to prioritize showing that content to your followers. But if you then disappear for a couple of weeks, your perceived reliability score plummets. And when you finally do come back and post something, the algorithm is hesitant. It's going to prioritize content from creators who've been consistently active during your absence. You're essentially starting from behind every time you break that rhythm.
Okay, that makes total sense. And finally, we get to what feels like maybe the most critical mindset shift needed, especially for you, the learner. It separates the amateurs from the pros, really. It's the vanity metric trap. This is huge. The mistake is getting obsessed with only the big, flashy numbers, things like total likes, your overall follower count, maybe just passive video views.
Right. These numbers look great on a slide in a monthly report, don't they? They feel good. But the hard truth is they don't necessarily correlate with actual revenue or even with future purchase intent. A like is, well, it's momentary. It's the lowest possible level of engagement, really. A quick double tap. If you have 1 million followers, but absolutely none of them are buying your product, then you don't really have a business. You just own an expensive broadcast channel with zero return on investment.
So the solution then is a deliberate strategic shift, focusing instead on the metrics that are much more meaningful, the ones that actually indicate real conversion potential or genuine brand advocacy. What are those specific metrics we should be obsessing over instead?
We need to obsess over the metrics that demonstrate intent and advocacy. The big 3 that consistently came up are saves, shares, and click-through rates, CTRs, specifically CTRs to your product pages or your main e-commerce site. Why these three? Well, saves indicate the content was genuinely valuable, useful enough that someone wanted to bookmark it to come back to it later. That signals practical utility. Shares indicate advocacy. The person found it so good or so relevant that they were willing to essentially put their own reputation on the line by sending it to a friend or sharing it with their network. That's a powerful endorsement. And CTRs obviously are the direct link to commerce. Did they take the action you wanted them to take after seeing the content? If you've got a post with 1 million likes but almost 0 shares and a tiny CTR, you're likely just entertaining people, not building a sustainable business. Smart brands now are actually setting internal goals for things like save rates, aiming for, say, a high single-digit save rate, maybe 5% or more of all viewers saving the post, as a key indicator of truly valuable, effective content. Okay, so if we manage to avoid those pitfalls and then we lean into the trends that matter, what's the actual blueprint? How do we build a social media strategy that actually lasts, that's sustainable beyond just the next campaign or the next viral sound? The goal, really, is simple in concept. A sustainable strategy needs to feel like a natural, organic extension of your brand's core identity. It shouldn't feel like this separate, frantic marketing channel that's always just reacting and trying to catch up with whatever happened yesterday. And the first, absolutely non-negotiable step towards making it sustainable: efficiency. Specifically, efficiency through really smart content management. This goes right back to that resource constraint issue we mentioned at the start. You need disciplined processes. The first component of that is batch content creation.
Okay, batching. How does that work specifically for a beauty brand? What does that look like?
It means planning ahead. It means shooting several related pieces of content all in one go. For instance, maybe you filmed 5 different short videos, each highlighting a key ingredient from your new line. Or perhaps you film 4 different tutorials showing various ways to use a single product. You do it all in one dedicated session, maybe 1 day a week or every 2 weeks. This massively saves time on all the setup, the lighting, the camera angles, maybe hair and makeup or wardrobe changes. Instead of that daily scramble to think of, shoot, and edit one piece of content, you block out time and efficiently generate a whole batch of related content. That discipline is what ensures you have a consistent flow of output without completely burning out your creative team every single day.
Right, that makes sense for getting the content made efficiently. And the second component you mentioned is repurposing, which feels vital for getting the absolute maximum value out of everything you create in those batch sessions. Yeah, if you've invested the time to create, say, one really high quality, maybe longer form tutorial for YouTube, maybe it's 15 minutes long, you should immediately be thinking, how many different ways can I slice and dice this? You could pull out the most visually dynamic 30-second application sequence and turn that into a reel for Instagram. You could take just the audio track, maybe the key tips, and use that as a voiceover on a trending sound for a TikTok video. You could extract high-quality still photos from the video footage or create short looping GIFs and use those on Pinterest to drive traffic back to the full tutorial or the product page.
This approach stretches every creative asset so much further. You use that single piece of core content across multiple platforms, tailored to each one's format. It dramatically multiplies the ROI on your initial creation time. It's the definition of working smarter, not just harder. Okay, strategy number 2 really reinforces the philosophy behind those trends we talked about earlier. It's about fully committing to the value-first approach. This means consciously balancing your content mix. Your educational, helpful, value-driven content must significantly outweigh your direct sales pitches. We often talk about aiming for something like the 80-20 rule, maybe even 90-10 in some cases. 80% value, 20% direct sell. Why? Because if every single post just screams, buy this now, sale, discount, you just exhaust your audience. You alienate them, they tune out. But value-first content, the tips, the tutorials, the honest ingredient explanations, the behind-the-scenes glimpses, that's what builds trust. It establishes your brand as a helpful authority, as a resource. And when that trust is firmly established, the eventual conversions feel much more organic. They don't feel forced or pushy. You've basically shifted the dynamic. You're not just selling at people anymore. You're genuinely helping them solve a problem or achieve a goal. And your product happens to be the trusted solution you're offering. You essentially earn the right to sell rather than just demanding the purchase.
That idea of earning trust leads perfectly into the next strategy, strategic partnerships. But these also need to be viewed through that critical lens of ROI, not just vanity or exposure. We need to highlight the power of very specific types of collaborations, maybe moving away from just defaulting to those huge, often incredibly expensive celebrity endorsements. Yeah, the sources were really clear on championing micro-influencers. But I wonder, for a brand that's maybe just starting out, really trying to break through that initial awareness barrier, isn't there still some place for that big celebrity splash just to get on the radar in the first place?
It's a fair question. There can be a place for that big splash moment, maybe for a major launch. But often the actual return on investment, especially for ongoing sustainable growth, is pretty poor compared to micro-influencers. See, macro-influencers, the big celebrities, they bring massive reach, yes, but it's often very broad, very generalized reach. Micro-influencers, and we're generally talking about creators with maybe 10,000 to 100,000 followers, but in a very specific niche, they bring something arguably more valuable. Highly engaged, highly trusting niche audiences. Their followers tend to see them as relatable peers, as trusted sources of specialized advice within that niche, like clean beauty or curly hair care or acne-prone skincare, rather than just seeing them as paid billboards reading a script. Because of that trust, an endorsement from a micro-influencer often carries far more weight. It feels more authentic, and this frequently translates into significantly higher conversion rates, sometimes double or triple among their smaller but highly relevant audience compared to a massive generic celebrity post. When you're vetting potential micro-influencers to partner with, don't just look at their follower count. Look closely at their engagement rate, yes, but critically, look at their average save rate on relevant posts. A micro-influencer whose audience frequently saves their content. That's a strong signal that their followers find the content genuinely useful and trustworthy. And that trust is exactly what translates into sales for your brand.
Okay, and the final piece of this sustainable strategy puzzle, recognizing that the digital world changes constantly. The strategy has to embrace evolution over revolution. So what does that continuous improvement actually look like day to day, without losing your brand's core identity in the process?
It means being adaptable. It means constantly monitoring performance, paying attention to audience feedback, and being willing to adjust your formats and approaches as trends shift and algorithms tweak things. But, and this is the crucial part, you do that without fundamentally changing who you are as a brand. Your core identity, your voice, your values, those need to remain consistent. Think of it like having an adaptable outer shell, but an unmoving, solid core. So for example, if your data starts showing that your audience is getting tired of a certain type of trending audio format on Reels, you evolve your audio strategy. You try something different. If TikTok suddenly starts prioritizing slightly longer, maybe 60-second vertical videos over the super short 15-second clips, you evolve your content format to experiment with that longer duration. But the consistency mandate holds firm. Your core message, maybe it's your unwavering commitment to clean, sustainable ingredients, or your focus on celebrating real skin texture that must remain the same. That combination of adaptability, always guided by data and audience insights, but anchored firmly to your core brand identity. That's the very definition of a sustainable, long-term social media strategy. #outro. So if we try and tie all these threads together now, connect it back to that bigger picture, what does success really look like for beauty brands online today and heading into 2025? It really requires this approach that's just defined by intense intentionality. It's about carefully choosing the right channels for the right strategic purpose. It's about authentically leaning into the trends that matter, especially radical transparency and genuine human connection. And it's about adopting a sustainable process for creating and managing content, one that leverages efficiency, smart repurposing, and a commitment to educating your audience first. Ultimately, it's about building this kind of digital fortress of trust around your brand, brick by brick, one highly intentional, well-placed post at a time.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. Okay, so let's quickly recap the core action items, the key takeaways for you, the learner, to really focus on. First, platform specialization is absolutely essential. You have to understand the distinct, different roles of Instagram as that polished visual HQ versus TikTok as the engine for raw virality. They are not interchangeable. Second, authenticity isn't just a buzzword anymore, it's non-negotiable. That's embodied in things like the demand for real skin, real people content, show reality. And finally, crucially, your strategic focus must shift. Move away from obsessing over those low-value vanity metrics like raw likes and follower counts, and zero in on the high-value indicators that actually drive business outcomes, specifically shares, saves, and click-through rates. So what does all this mean for you listening right now? Social media isn't just a megaphone to shout from anymore. It's this incredibly dynamic marketplace. It's where beauty brands, even smaller ones, can genuinely stand out, lead important conversations, and drive real, scalable revenue. But only if they approach it with cold, hard strategy. Approaching this incredibly fast-moving market with clear intention, with operational discipline. That is the fundamental difference between just hoping for slow, inconsistent growth and actually building a powerful, reliable engine for community and, yes, for immediate revenue.
And, this all raises a really important question, maybe a final thought for you to wrestle with as these social commerce integrations become even more seamless. If that path from seeing content to clicking buy now becomes virtually instantaneous, How are brands going to successfully balance that incredibly rapid transactional nature of the purchase, that immediate gratification of the Shop Now button, with the slower, arguably more crucial foundational work of building deep community trust? The kind of trust required by things like detailed ingredient transparency or founder vulnerability and storytelling. Where are the potential friction points in that super accelerated customer journey? Could consumers actually burn out faster on brands that lean too heavily into the instant transaction, potentially at the expense of building that deeper educational trust-based relationship first? Something to think about, that critical, perhaps delicate balance between speed and lasting loyalty.
Thanks for tuning in to the Song for Beauty podcast. This is a place where beauty meets community and it meets strategy and ideas. If anything resonated with you, if you were inspired, if ideas were sparked by this podcast, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, also share it. Be sure to check out www.samb Stay tuned, and we hope to see you at the SAMB for Beauty conference this year in November. It's a virtual conference, November 5th through the 7th. There's a lot of great resources. You're going to access workshops, one-to-one consultations and membership. And then there are quarterly webinars for knowledge, and there's a knowledge base that you can access, all to support your efforts as you look at expanding some of your sales and marketing efforts for your business. We appreciate you checking in. Make sure to follow and check out the next episode.